feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Monday morning. It's February 24th after the Wolves' 130 to 123 loss on Sunday night to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Another game played without Rudy Gobert, without Julius Randle, without Dante DiVincenzo. Another game the Wolves had to play small. We're going to get into this one. I've got Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick here with me from the Pioneer Press. What's up, Jace?
Hey, dude. How you doing?
I'm good. This is I feel like I was at Target Center like not that long ago. How many hours into sleep? How many hours into sleep last night were you when you think the Wolves landed in Oklahoma City last night, or got to their hotel? It's so
judging off Alan Horton's tweet, I mean, I went to bed at 2, and he said that at 2:47 we beat the Thunder, so to Oklahoma City. So by the time they got to their hotels, like an hour 15 by the time
So Ant was quick with his packing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Ant forgot to pack before the trip, everybody. So
which is the most Ant thing ever. Like, oh, hey, I didn't really. Oh, we have a 4-game road trip after this. Yeah, I'm gonna need to head back to my house. Everybody else is like, got my bag packed. He's like, we're leaving right after this. Yeah. Oh,
Leonard hadn't packed either.
Yeah. How long are we on the road? Oh, wow. Yeah, I should go get a couple shirts.
So to this one, I don't think this was like a incredible Naz Reid and Reid-McDaniels game compared to what they've been doing recently. But I want to start with them because you and I haven't talked on here since, it's been the Wolves have had to go small. Rudy's been out, whatever. And as I'm seeing, let me pull this up. The Naz ends up shooting 6 for 18 from the field, 3 for 9 from 2, 3 for 9 from 3. Not great. Jaden's 4 for 9 from 2, 1 for 6 from 3. It wasn't what it was the last time they played the Thunder, right? But this has been really impressive overall. The time those two have shared at the 4 and 5 together. We were seeing some of it even before Rudy was hurt when they would go small. And I'm just wondering, what you, Jace, individually picture this can and should be going forward. Like, how much more of this small stuff, particularly the Naz and Jaden piece of it, can be a sustainable part, a weapon for the Wolves the rest of the way?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something that probably makes sense, in certain lineups, but how much do you lean on it when? I like the way that they have played. Those two have played. And so that's the part where I'm like, oh, yeah, this is definitely something you can do a lot of. And then you just look at the record and it's like, wait, they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. Yeah. Wait, they've done this. And you can go, well, they're down a bunch of guys. And it's like, but if you're saying that it's a Jaden Naz frontcourt, that means Julius and Gobert aren't on the court. Right. So you're just putting Dante in. And I guess saying then maybe that helps the record. But so that's the point where I don't know if it's the sustainable winning formula, but is it something you can sprinkle in more? The idea of that sounds good, but it's like everything with rotations where we're like, when do you get to that? How do you get to that? So I don't know. I've really enjoyed watching those two play. I've enjoyed, the way that a lot of times defensively, it's not that bad, even when they're out there, because Jaden off the ball, when Jalen Clark's on the ball, Jaden is actually a pretty good rim deterrent. And the way he can impact the whole defense is great. Naz and Jaden have rebounded really great. So in theory, it sounds really good. And when you watch it, it's aesthetically pleasing for sure. So that's where I get caught in the thing of this is really good. And then I just look at the team results and I'm like, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Right. So it has to, because there isn't going to be an opportunity for those two to just share the front court together a ton going forward. So it becomes a question of, okay, if we really like this, we really want to play it, how do you effectively incorporate it into a front court that also has one of Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert in there? And again, like I said, they were doing this before Julius and Rudy got hurt. They were finding some of those things. And then obviously they were playing a ton of minutes with Jaden at the 3, Naz at the 4, and one of those other guys out at the 5 with them. I looked it up before last night's game, at least, and it was the best 2-man pairing that the Wolves have since January 1st is Reid-McDaniels and Naz Reid. And it's just like, it's the energy. Even though the record isn't what it is, it's like the energy of what has been intriguing about their small ball play right now. I would like say the emblem of that is Jaden and Naz. And I'm just wondering like how you kind of carry that over for the rest of the season, being as I think that's going to have to happen if you're going to want to win a lot of games. I can't figure out in my head if it's Julie, like, does that work with Julius if he's out there with them? Does that work with Rudy? And I think I'd lean more Julius. I don't know.
What's interesting is like on nights like last night, you wonder like, does it work with Ant? Because it wasn't like when Ant would go in the game, and granted, his minutes would coincide with SGA's, and so that's part of it. But there have been parts where it's like, I don't know, like when Ant's out there, it's not the exact same thing. When it's just Naz and Jaden, and there almost isn't really a pecking order, but those two are kind of playing off one another, and they're at the top, but they're not just like ball dominant at the top of the pecking order. So it's a lot of good offense that leads to Jaden opportunities to play off the catch and whatnot, and Naz kind of playing within some freedom or structure that he plays freely through that just ends in good results. He gets multiple guys in the ball, he makes the right choice, or he's like, oh, I've got a good matchup here. And it kind of can get stunted when Ant's out there, and I think it would kind of probably get stunted a little bit if Randall's out there in the same respect. So I don't know. And then it's when I watch guys like that play, it's when I watch offense where it's like, well, actually, like Naz and Jaden are the two best offensive players out there. It's beautiful, share the ball offense, but there's a limit if there's not enough actual skill and talent on the court. I'm just not sure when I watch Naz. I'm like, well, he's pretty skilled and talented. Does he go above the threshold required to create? Like, they move the ball, and he's good enough to be the number one in it. I don't know. I'd have to see a much bigger sample size of that. But
let's talk about that.
I don't know how it fits in with Julius, or Ant or whoever, because it like the brand of basketball just gets a little bit different.
To the Naz specific, like that. With Jaden, what he's been doing more recently, not being on the ball, rebounding better, scoring more from 2-point range, all those things. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that, those were the best Jaden games before the injuries. Like, it just feels like he's more comfortable with those things now. I expect them to stay. I don't think if you change his spot in the pecking order, Jaden loses those skills. Maybe he loses some opportunities, right? Those things hold. The Naz one is what I'm interested in, and I asked Vince about it last night. I'm like, what more is Naz doing? Like, and are these things going to be able to sustain once the roster's back? And he's like, I don't think it's more. I think it's just Naz getting more minutes. I'm not sure I really agree with that. And you and I were talking about this in the locker room a little bit last night. Maybe what it is just sometimes Naz doesn't get opportunities. And I think in my head, I'm like, I want to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Where every game Naz has the opportunity to kind of do what he's been doing more recently. And I think that has to happen. And I don't like really doubt that it will sustain. This doesn't seem to me like he's just getting the chance to start, so he's getting more opportunity. It seems like a sustainable thing. There's never really been a time where you give Naz more and he can't really handle it. I just, mostly just out of curiosity, I want to see him be like a 35-minute a game player, high in usage for the rest of the season. Let's just like see what the peak of this is. Like that, not to mention he's going into unrestricted free agency. I don't know. I don't want this to go away, and he kind of has to fit in alongside that front court anymore. I don't really know exactly where I'm going with that in the question too. It's mostly just like my opinion on it. But what do you think happens Naz specifically, I guess, if Julius comes back this week and Rudy does too?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like Rudy being out, the whole thing, I mean, I know what you're talking about is like that on ball, like brilliant stuff, and what he can do with the ball in his hands, and like the step back threes, the way he's able to even get to the rim with it off the bounce. It's very cool. And I think it's awesome then when you can do that, but then also for stretches of the fourth, in the beginning of the fourth last night when Ant's not out there, and they're like, let's go to Naz in the post. And Naz is getting the ball and instant double, and it's just the easiest, like, okay, I'm getting off of it. And it's 3 passes later, it's an open 3 for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Nas doesn't get an assist there, but he did exactly what everybody wanted Cat to do for 5 years. Just like, oh, I'm just passing to the next guy. And guys were cutting well, and he was looking off that. Like, it's like, okay, so he is like, I have an advantageous opportunity here. I can score. Or the defense is attributing extra resources to me. I'm going to get off it so somebody else can score. It's just a lot of like right decision basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's sustainable too, because he doesn't force it.
Right.
It's just, but the way he gets it when he is clearly the number one, those instances where he does the cool stuff off the bounce and whatnot is usually when he's like the number one option on the floor. And that doesn't really happen when Julius is out there. That doesn't really happen when Ant's out there. I don't know if it matters if Rudy's out there or not. You probably can't do as much of the post up stuff. But I agree with you. All this stuff is very cool. And it almost is like, that's focal point of the offense stuff. And I just don't even know if it's the same if any of like their high volume scorers are on the court,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he just can't be a focal. Yeah, right. If Julius Randle's out there.
I mean, as soon as Ant came on the floor last night, Nas still got shots, but it became kickouts to him. And it was not, he's a focal point of this. It was just, he's the beneficiary of somebody else's gravity. And that's all I thought he was in the past, but he's clearly shown when given the opportunity that he's more than that. But it's very different when somebody else is out there doing all the dribbling or whatever. And otherwise when he's the guy and they're setting things up for him and they're running things through him.
Yeah. It's like if you just wanted to play you wanted to give him the 35 minutes, you want to play your best players. You're like, okay, we're going to start him at the 3 then. And Ant's going to play the 1, and Jaden's going to play the 2, and Nas going to play the 3, Julius play the 4, Rudy will play the 5. There you go. You get 35 minutes again, still. But that's right. Like, that group isn't going to work, right? That's
right.
Fun. I do want to. I'd like to see that some, but you can't just like make that your starting lineup going forward. I don't think I'd be shocked if they did. I'd be shocked if it played more than a few minutes here and there. It just then, if that is true, comes to a point that somebody has to be sacrificed, right? Or their minutes, their opportunity, their focal pointness. And like, I don't want Nas to lose that, but I kind of think he will. Don't you?
How won't he, in this fact of, if everybody's like, Nas should start, Julius should come off the bench? It's like, okay, the whole thought of that is then Julius runs with the 2s. Well, what you're talking about is the time when if Nas ran with the 2s, he could be Nas, So it's kind of the thing with either one. Like, somebody's going to have to play in the starting lineup, and you're just probably not going to get to be the focal point when you're playing in the starting lineup. And then somebody's going to get to run with the 2s and maybe be more of that focal point for that stretch. It kind of is what it is, like kind of.
Yeah. It's like the beginning of this season, right? It's like they trade for Julius Randle and, go like doing like radio and stuff like that. Like, Nas Reed has to start. And what my stance was all the time was I don't think the Wolves had a Nas Reed needs to start problem. I think the Wolves have a Nas Reed needs to play more minutes problem. Yeah. And I don't know, like I kind of still think that's just maybe what the best solution is have him come off of the bench, but have him find even more minutes than you were previous to the.
I agree. The 26, 27, 28, like, I mean, some games would be 24. That's not enough.
He's at 27 for the season, and that's including these games. We play like these last games where have been juiced up by the starting. Like, I just think you got to find a way where it's like 28's the floor. Like barring foul trouble or or whatever. Do you think that's possible? Like, say everything's like back to full strength, or what makes it possible if Nas is a 30 minutes a night guy every time? You just who then are you taking minutes away from?
Probably Rudy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. Matchup specific or whatever.
Yeah, you're working him down to like 28. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes 25 or whatever. If it's like a because
Randall. I mean, if you go, well, he should play 28. Well, you're 28. if Gobert's still playing 34 or whatever, like, just the math doesn't add up.
Unless we do get some 3, can get some 3. And
right.
I think for Nas is probably part of that. I think Like, I just think
But that's hard to split that up too. Like, there are only so many minutes at the 3.
But is it hard or is it impossible? Like, in that, because that's the thing is, like, if it's possible.
Again, this is I mean, if you're gonna tell me to do this, I should have mapped it out. Because then I would say, well, now you have this guy down to 10 minutes, and you go, oh yeah, you can't have that.
But yes, should have mapped it out. But if it's possible, then it's kind of on Finch and Micah, to figure out a way to do it. And it is possible if you played Nas a lot at the 3, you could do that. There's like, it's possible to get all of those guys playing.
Then just say who. Then just tell me who's not playing. Then
I think it's you lose the there's no Jalen Clark, there's no Rob Dillingham, there's no Terrence Shannon Jr.
You're down to solid 8 again. Yeah.
I mean, but when Kyle and I kind of did this a week ago or something like that, and my thing is it's like I'd rather have it be 8 than 8.5. Like 9 might be the right number. I
don't disagree. I think there are very obvious nights like last night where we all do see, and it doesn't mean he has to play every night, but like there are certain matchups where Jalen Clark just makes a lot of sense because the type of defender he is against like an SGA, and he actually prevents SGA from getting to his spots. And then Jaden can be a menace off the ball, or like go on Jalen Williams and totally shut off that water. It's the perfect way to defend them. There are other matchups we've seen where it's like, I don't really know what Jalen Clark's value is out there because there's nobody to shut down. Yeah, right. It's like he's just running around out there. It doesn't really have like his purpose.
Yeah, so Damian Lillard wasn't in that game. And he's just guarding Torian Prince.
Yeah. So now it's just the defense isn't really doing anything. And then offensively, he has some good games, but I think we all know, like, if you're going down, where is he in terms of like best offensive players? Even like, I think he's a high IQ offensive player. It's just he's probably gonna be like 9th, 10th, whatever, 11th. And so some games he doesn't need to play. I really do think there are matchup things where it's like tonight he's got to play 20 minutes or whatever. And some nights he doesn't have to, and that's hard for a player. But like at their peak, that's probably the case.
I want to talk about Jalen last night in particular. Let's grab our first ab break here. Today's show is brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino, and Treasure Island has a ton of promotional stuff going on for the month of March, where if you use your Players Club card there, it's called the Island Passport Club, you are earning these base points that they have, and these base points, you're playing blackjack, you're playing at any of the table games, you're playing poker there, and you're racking up these points that give you these entries to $440,000 worth of giveaways that Treasure Island is doing in the month of March. 4 people are going to be selected to earn a $60,000 Chevy gift card in that month. So I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, March, like get down there. There's more things to do there. There's more opportunity to win. I think Treasure Island would be a really fun place to go to watch March Madness, one of the Thursday, Fridays, or the weekend. They have the Parlay Lounge, which I've been to a couple times now with us having done some live shows. Legitimately, it would be an awesome place to watch March Madness. They have like the full set of screens and everything there that you would see, in a normal like sports book in Vegas. I want you to put that on your radar for the month of March, and know that there are many giveaways going on in the month of March at Treasure Island Resort and Casino if you use your Island Passport Club card. For more information and a full list of upcoming promotions, visit ticasino.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. There are as always, a chunk of you out there who have home improvement needs. You have that issue going on in your bathroom, or the basement that needs to be renovated. You're going to have to go to somebody. Your Home Improvement Company has been a loyal supporter of us, and we would love if you would consider going to them. They have deals going on. If you have leaky windows, buy 2 windows, get 2 free. Bathroom renovations are 30% off this entire month. They also have great financing deals where it's 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. If you have a home improvement need, just look into Your Home Improvement Company. You can call them at 866-777-YHIC, or you can contact them by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. Jalen Clark and I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker were more stories specific to last night. They were the stories of why the Wolves were in that game at all last night. And you're talking about Jalen before the break, and of teams that have this guard play. His first game, right? That's how he got the opportunity, was against Phoenix, where it's Booker, Beal, and Durant out there, and they just having Jalen out there to be able to handle one of those guys was a massive benefit to the Wolves. It allows Jaden McDaniels to play off ball, get those rebounds, defend the rim, like you were saying. We could talk about the defense. We've just done that a lot already. I loved last night how the Thunder tried to hide Chet Holmgren on him and just let Chet sit at the rim, so he could take away Ant's drives. I loved how Jalen just didn't just sit in the corner, be like, all right, I'm ready for this 34%er, because he knows what he is and he's being active off of it. He was like, all right, you're going to leave me Chet, then I'm going to go up and I'm going to screen for Ant. And if I set a good screen on Ant's guy and you're not up here with me, well, then Ant is just going to step in three, or have a head of steam to go to the basket. It sounds crazy, but Jalen Clark pulled Chet Holmgren away from the rim. And my rationale if I wanted to make an argument of Jalen Clark has to play, 15, 20 minutes a night for the rest of the season, the argument is, of course, the defense is good, but he's also not an offensive player that's costing you on the other side of the floor, which I certainly didn't see any of this coming from Jalen Clark. But that part did not even cross my mind. I always thought he would be like a guy, you're getting the benefit defensively, but offensively, he's costing you. Have there been a couple games where he hasn't finished around the basket? He's missed threes. Sure, he's not a great offensive player, but he's a functional, Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome to role players, and I understand, these last 3 games, he shot 22% from 3 or whatever. It's you deal with that with guys all the time, but when they're cemented into the rotation, it's ebbs and flows of the season. But when it is a younger guy and there's multiple options in your mind, you can easily get to, wow, okay, it's swap him out for somebody else. But he does bring so many things sustainably. The defense, the cutting, like you said, the screening, just reading the game. He's a high IQ player, and they need those. They really do, to kind of continue to flush out their lineups oftentimes. It's we need shooting, we need defense, we need IQ. That is a real thing that he adds, and it really does.
Doesn't need the ball in his hands too. That's
right. And just is very committed to what he's doing. He knows he's out there for defense first, so he's willing to put in those extra efforts of I'm going to sprint up here as they're bringing the ball up the court, and just this almost first line of transition defense of, can I poke the ball away? These are these little efforts of somebody who knows that's what I'm on the court to do, is more willing to put in consistently than somebody else who goes, well, I've got 10 things I'm doing, I can't waste the energy on that. And those are little game-changing, momentum-changing plays that he pretty consistently makes, on top of, like you said, just doing the right thing on offense. A lot of offense opens up when people just do the right things, no matter what their skill set is. So I agree with you. I do think it's possible to get all of that and pick your spots a little bit of here's a night where we know we want him to play. Mm-hmm. Here's a night where maybe he'll play every game, but the minutes will be way down. Talk to him ahead of time of here's why we don't necessarily think this is a 20-minute game for you, but this one is a 24-minute game for you. I think he's shown to be somebody who can be ready whenever the call comes.
Yeah, doesn't that just feel obviously the role players do that, just a flexibility to what their role is going to be, every night. And sometimes, like you said, Clark is the perfect example. Some nights it makes sense to play 20, and some nights it might make sense to play 8 or 0. And if that energy kind of went through the entirety of the rotation, I think that would be a good thing for this Wolves team, and it would allow them to be, more dynamic, more matchup specific, which is what Finch has been kind of saying when we've asked, what is this going to look like? Terrence's help, Jalen's help, what is this going to look like? And he said, for those guys, it'll be matchup specific. I think to make it be matchup specific and to open up the 20 minutes a night, there's going to need to be a flexibility with, Rudy not playing 35 minutes, Julius, like we said, but even sometimes, and we'll talk about Nikhil here too, but maybe Nikhil isn't a 20-minute, 25-minute a game guy every time. It's going to need to be some ebb and flow to the overall, to the overall minute spread here. I thought it was interesting. I'm just gonna play this clip. I asked Nikhil about the depth of the perimeter defenders, and I want to ask you something associated with this. Here's Nikhil.
I mean, obviously it's valuable to have all these perimeter defenders, but how are you feeling that depth of perimeter guys with TJ and JC and all them?
I'm comfortable. I trust them, and the best part about it is knowing when teams want to send up, they can't. Now, who are you going to send up?
Right.
And that's something that we can use to our advantage because we have guys who are physical, guys with length, and guys who defend in different ways. Jaden, we've seen what he's been able to do since he's been here, and that's why they call him Seatbelt. TJ is slowly starting to show. We've seen what Jalen has done in the very few opportunities that he's had. Ant is arguably the NBA's best two-way player. So I think for us, it's helpful, and we have to continue to use that to our advantage.
So just to clarify, what he means by send up there is like, you picture this in the playoffs, right? It happens all the time where teams just target the worst defender on the opponent's team and they send them up to be the guy involved in the screening action, so you get them switched. And what Nikhil is saying is when they have Jaden and him and Jalen Clark and Ant out there, it's like, well, okay, who are you gonna send up here to force a switch onto? Because those guys are all good at switching into isolation defense. When the Wolves are in the playoffs and that starts happening, who do you think opponents will attack? Who do you think they will be sending up?
So who is your theoretical lineup?
I'm just-
all of them in the game? I know. Who's on the court? I mean, that's what matters. Like, is it those five guys? Like, that's not going to be those five.
No, that's what I'm saying. Not even of those perimeter guys. I'm just saying, like, in general. But I'll answer it first. Like, I think it's going to be Julius.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say it would be Julius or Nas. I mean, who's on the court? I mean,
okay.
that's who I think it would be. Like, whichever one's on the floor.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm curious to see is like how much of a liability is that?
I don't know if it is one, you know?
Yeah,
I out of like liabilities, like actually comparing it to other teams, I don't really think either is, frankly.
Yeah, because Julius is actually, that's been the one thing we've really liked about him defensively this season, is sitting down and guarding. And he's kind of like Ant that way, actually, where we could point to a lot of things that Randall hasn't done well, like off ball defensively this season, as we could with Ant. But my point of saying it was like, I think you'd point to like Julius, or like maybe you would even say Rudy.
Yeah, some teams would do Rudy for sure.
And I
see if he can get him a drop, somebody who's, good at beating that, see if he's willing to come up, which he often is, especially as like a series if a game plan is cemented and whatnot. But
I don't even hate
behind that. No, I agree. And then it's totally like they're probably not a switch, but then it's almost like a blitz, and then you got to trust your big to make a play out of it, which that's why Dallas won, because Luka was great, but Derek Lively was really good playing off of the short roll and making decisions out of that as you had a scrambling defense. That's what you do. It's not really a team where you could go, we'll just get this one matchup one-on-one and beat you one-on-one. Like, no team has ever, these last couple of years, that's been the worst way to take on the Wolves is let's just get into these one-on-one matchups. That's why the Clippers stink against the Wolves. That's why Phoenix stinks against the Wolves. It's not a one-on-one defense. You either have to, through off-ball movement, like we see the Thunder do so much of, or it's just trusting. It's getting like, okay, we're getting that high wall here look that they have to do with Rudy because our best player torches drop coverage, and now, okay, they've gone to the high wall. Now we have to trust our big. So it takes the right set of personnel oftentimes when this Wolves defense is really locked in to score against it.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with that, and I think this is it's really the inclusion of Jalen Clark and seeing this depth of perimeter defenders, and they're even doing like some pre-switching stuff where if it is a lot of times with like Luka or Nas, they'll send a guard there. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to go back to your original point, Dante's going to be on the court a lot. Dante will probably get called in a lot, and like we talk about Dante as a good defender, the most gettable on-ball defender, frankly, probably of the wings in general. He's good, like he's in the right spot, but it's just one of those things where physically you can probably get to where you want to go against. Like that. So that I think would happen quite a bit. And the Wolves would be like, well, he's a good defender, but it's just not the same level as Nikhil, Jalen, Jaden, and when Ant's putting in the effort on that end.
Yeah, it's there. What you said though before, where it's like compared to other teams,
right?
Like other teams have holes bigger than Dante DiVincenzo. there,
Yes.
or Julius Randle in those spots. And that's what gives me some encouragement that we could see the type of defense that we saw from the Wolves in the playoffs, last season again, that Phoenix series, right? Like I do think simply the inclusion of Jalen Clark into this mix has made me be like, oh yeah, here we are. Like we're back. Like this defense can be like last season's defense. When all season the defense has been good, it's solid, right? As a whole. But having this depth of options and having this just ability to not have big holes anywhere makes me believe that there's a higher ceiling to this Wolves defense than I would have said, 3-4 weeks ago, like significantly higher, and could win a game in a playoff series, could maybe even win a playoff series in the right matchup because of that. The amount of depth and the lack of holes compared to the rest of the league is impressive.
As much as like Jalen is a really good defender, I think his biggest impact still is that effort that he brings on that end of the court. I really do think there's probably something to personnel being the same, not the same, whatever. Last year's team defended really hard every night. I kind of feel like there probably was a little bit, at least to open the year, whatnot of, we're not going to do that for the whole season again, are we? Because the effort just hasn't been the same. We've seen there have been more lapses this year than last year. There's a lot of nights where it's like he's not really putting in much effort at all on that end. Jaden, I don't think the effort was the exact same to start the year. All this stuff, like you have to be really dialed in physically and mentally to be great, to be like elite defensively. And Jalen Clark comes in and is like, I'm fresh, I'm doing that.
Right.
And it kind of sets a tone, it raises the bar a little bit. It's also just somebody who is doing it. It's another guy who's doing it.
Right.
And just that impact is pretty big. That's why I'm interested to see this team defend come like playoff time. What level can they get to? Because I do think there just hasn't, throughout parts of the year, just hasn't been the same amount of commitment. And I understand it. Like last year, it was like, we got things to prove. We have to show that we're this team, blah, blah, blah. But that was hard. And sometimes people don't want to do hard for 6 months, year after year.
One name that we left out of this send up situation or potential perimeter weaknesses would be Mike Conley.
Yep.
And that he would be the one. He's the send up guy. He's the guy you would try to get that switch and go at it. I think, and we saw this a lot last night, where Nickeil could just play the one, right? And he's not out there, and so you do kind of take that away. I agree, Jaden wasn't defending or putting in as much of the effort defensively as he did a season ago, and did the Mike one. It doesn't seem like he's maybe able to do the same things defensively that he was a year ago. Like that's
sure at the start of the year. I mean, and I'm not saying it's the same even now, but I think he's physically looks significantly better now than he did at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year was like, geez, he can't move. And now we see a lot more where he gets switched on to somebody or something and he actually defends them. So that makes a big difference as well. Like you said, like physically it looked rough at the beginning of the year, and it was like, ooh, this isn't really playable. It's going to be hard to be good defensively with this guy on the court.
And now it's just going to be like when it's guys that are bigger than him or more physically imposing, and he can't do that. But that again brings it to the Nickeil part where, all right, this, the Houston game, it was not a good game for Mike from a matchup position. Well, okay, if you could let go of Mike there to be able, and then allow Nickeil to just play heavier minutes in that game and play the point guard, which I think he's done a better job of being a point guard on the offensive side of the floor. Like I do like their ability to switch those gears, though obviously Finch really wants Mike out there. Like he wants him out there for the offensive part of it. But that's part of the balance here too. Nickeil specifically, though, I just feel like we were shouting him out like all the time at the beginning of the season as the most consistent player. And then he just kind of continued to be consistent. And then we kind of let it, it's just like, all right, he's consistent. I just like have had in my notes these last couple of games of like, man, we're sleeping on Nickeil. Like it's consistent. You talk about a role play, like welcome to a role play. Like, man, what more do you want out of a role play? I just want to give him his flowers again. The fourth quarter, what he was doing offensively, hitting shots, and how he's just evolved into more of an offensive player. Sometimes I think we forget how good Nickeil is, how good Nickeil has become, and and how consistent he has been. I think he's been a huge. I was saying earlier, like Nas and Jaden are like the emblem of this small ball thing working. Like, I think Nikhil deserves to be up there as well. He is a huge part of. He's a huge part of it, like not ever falling apart. I think, and I think that's high praise.
Yeah, I think when somebody's here for a little while and has a year like last year, so often we're like, well, now what? Now what more can he do? You know, and you constantly are looking for like, okay, how's he going to continue to evolve when the existing product is really good? And it's like the thing with him is he knows what he's good at, and like you said, and Fitch has said, he brings it every night. And you know, so often I think when, you know, you watch him attack the rim or something, it's like, oh, that didn't end great. Geez, how good is he off the balance? Like, how much pressure does he put on the rim? It's like, it doesn't have to, you know? And I think so often they just start focusing on like, well, he's not doing this or whatever. And this could be a little bit better. It's like, you're getting this really good player and you're getting it every single night for 82 games over the course of the year. That value is huge.
Even if not perfect.
Exactly. We almost get bored with it. So then we just start picking at things, you know? And it's at some point it's like, this is good enough, you know, like,
Right.
and it should be appreciated more. And I do think it's a little different of when you evaluate like an Ant or something. And it's like, okay, well, he's making this much money, has to be your best player. If you're going to win the championship, he has to be A, B, C, and D. Nikhil is good enough to be the role that he is in on any team right now. You know, he could go in for the Celtics and just be him and they would win the championship or whatever. Because he's good at what he is always going to be asked to do in the NBA, you know,
in this NBA.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that I agree with you. Like he brings it every night. He is sure some nights maybe the shots won't fall or whatever, but consistently approach like the amazing. There'll be possessions throughout a game where I'll just watch Nikhil and I'll be like, yep, boxed out perfectly, did what he's supposed to do there. Sprinted down the court, got to the corner for proper spacing, like, and he doesn't get the ball or whatever, so you don't even think about it. But it's like he does the right thing every single play, you know, like, and the results will be what the results will be. But his process is awesome, and that's what leads to somebody being consistent on a night in, night out basis in a league where it's really hard to be consistent.
I want to talk to you a little bit just about like the OKC matchup in general. Obviously, they play them again tonight. It's a possibility that, you know, that could be the first round matchup, right? If the Wolves are the 8th seed, it could be their second round matchup if they get the 4 or 5 seed and win in the first round, right? How are you feeling about how the Wolves would match up with this team in a playoff series, given that when we saw the full strength Wolves play the Thunder back on New Year's Eve, they didn't look like they could play with them, you know, and when it's Julius and Dante and Rudy all played in that game. And now we've seen these 2 games when they've gone small and like really, really played with them, you know. What do you think this would look like in a playoff series? Do you think it's a series the Wolves could compete in?
Compete, yeah. I mean, I think the Wolves would push the Thunder for sure. I wouldn't pick them to win the series. The biggest thing is they're going small in these games and not giving anything up.
It's crazy.
You know, especially on the glass. They've been just really good on the glass. They've been relentless in these games. And I think you see the Wolves almost max effort. You really do still see that of like, oh, this is a big time opponent. Like, let's bring it. You know, and it's Nas on the glass, it's Jaden on the glass, it's Luka Garza coming in and grabbing like a few key offensive rebounds, that kind of stuff. And they're able to do that. Like, it's got this team like Chet and Hartenstein on the court. And the Wolves will have Nas and Jaden on the court, and the Wolves are winning the battle on the glass. So as long as you can do that, then Nas is just such a difficult matchup for anybody. Forget the Thunder, anybody when he's at the 5 offensively, just like a lot like what Cat was when he was the 5 here. So yeah, I think it gives them a lot of problems. The way they can defend Shea with like Clark is a pretty good like defensive matchup for Shea, and then you can put and then Jalen Williams is not a release valve if Reid-McDaniels is on him. So I like the way they match up in general. I certainly wouldn't pick the Wolves in that series, but you go ahead and then I'll have a second question for you.
Yeah, the thing I just wanted to say is like, you know, I'm thinking about Julius and Rudy in this series, and I think with the Rudy element of it, like I think he'll help them on the glass, which Jaden does a great job, like handling Hartenstein, and who's a really, really good offensive rebounder. But in general, Rudy's going to help there. Rudy's going to help give you more lane defense against Shea and drop and those. And playoff series really see that best version of Rudy. It's weird to compare like Rudy to Jalen Clark, but it's going to be sort of the same thing where they're going to ignore him offensively. But Rudy isn't perimeter oriented like Jalen is. So he does still need to screen a lot and do those same things, but there's going to be a congestion to the Wolves offense when Rudy plays in a game against this Thunder team that, I think a big part of why they've been able to score at a crazy clip against the Thunder in these last two games is just because they've had the space to be able to do so. So I have that concern from a Rudy standpoint in the matchup. And then I have a concern about Julius being able to do what Julius is good at, which is, take his guy off the dribble, penetrate, drive, and kick there. Because again, we saw them put Jalen Williams on him in that New Year's Eve matchup, and Julius is getting ripped. He can't really get to his spots there because the Thunder are just so special with guys who can guard that type of player. Jalen Williams in particular is special at being able to guard that exact type of player. So I have those, and again, I think they could use Julius too. They could use Rudy, but there are some flaws in it. It's why I would love to see one or both of them play tonight, just to get another look at what they look like in this type of matchup in particular. That's what I wanted to say. What else?
Yeah, I know you kind of went exactly where I was going to go with it, is that it's so easy in all these games to go, oh, wow, look at this. And they don't even have X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And it's true in some matchups, but there are many times where I'm like, okay, where would the guys who are missing have been additive tonight? What would they have done where the Wolves would be like, whoa, now you're significantly better and you lost because of this? Like Rudy be helpful on the glass. They dominated the glass last night. I don't know if it would get like 10x better because Rudy's out there. And like you said, with Rudy, you help in the lane with Shea. Like Shea's a pretty good, like 8 to 10 foot player. There are things where I just don't know how much better it makes the matchup in general. The Houston game, like Şengün and the impact he had, Rudy is very good against Şengün. Like he really frustrates him. I think they probably would have won the Houston game if Rudy was out there. I do believe that Houston would not have had the same level of offensive success. There are just other matchups where it's always easy to go, and we were missing 3 of our guys or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. You're going to have to point the spots out to me where it would have gotten better. And sometimes you do just match up better with certain personnel, and you're forced into that personnel set because certain guys are out. And it's not like you can't get to those same looks, but you probably won't as frequently. And are you better off for it? There have been plenty of games where I'm like, well, they would have won that game if Julius was out there. And legitimately believe that. But like you said, some of these matchups, I don't know. It could be a little bit more problematic. So it's team to team, know. And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see if that is a playoff series. What his approach would be like when he bench guys.
Yeah. Do you remember? It was legitimately like last year, the Kings, like they weren't very good against the Kings when Karl was on the court. But when Karl was off the court, they were incredible. Yeah. And yet there are other matchups where it's like, well, you need Karl to be good in this series. Like that is basketball, especially with high level teams. It's the matchups really matter. So go ahead. Sorry.
No. I agree with that. And it's so when Kyle and I were doing the pod after the Houston game, and this is a little bit broader than OKC specific, but like the idea of these guys coming back and for sure being additive. Right. Like, and I kind of did spin it that way of, I see a world where in these last 25 games, the Wolves do peak because they're adding pieces back into this fold, good players who, should theoretically not just raise the ceiling, but raise the whole product. They just will need to be the sum of their parts. Right. Yeah. When that could not even greater than the sum of their parts. And that's what they weren't. They were lesser than the sum of their parts, October, November, and December, when this team was full strength. And I think that's going to be like, that is just going to define the season. I think once you get back healthy, are these pieces that have been out who are good players, are they additive to the construct of this team that's playing right now, or does it become kind of murky again?
This is what's so interesting of like they're losing games right now. You
No,
know? Like,
right.
But it's just totally this thing of like, but it's aesthetically pleasing. You know, like that's 100%. It's like they've lost 4 of their last 5, and it doesn't feel like that. You know, but it's the truth. And like since Julius been out, the record is not very good. You know, and they'd won 5 in a row or whatever when he went hurt. So it's just, if anybody want to point out, be like, no, obviously they're bad. Like, look at they were winning games, and then he's out, and now they're losing a lot of games, and that's just.
Well, I think that's the reason for optimism. Julius specific is like Julius was playing really well.
Yes, and they were playing well with him. You know,
yes,
yeah.
So like, I think his piece can be additive. I think, like you said, the Houston series matchup specific. I think Rudy can be majorly additive.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question is, can they both be additive simultaneously?
Yeah. I agree with that. The fit of all the pieces together,
right,
remains a question. I don't feel like there's been too many games where it'd be like, wow, this team just like is the puzzle pieces have fit perfectly, you know. But you do see, it's just I think the general thought is, well, Nas is playing really well, Jaden's playing well. If you can get these guys integrated and maintain a lot of that, then you can maybe hit a new height. But the question always is, well, can those things coexist? You know, and that I agree with you. I think it's 100% like that's the ceiling for the team. And then the question remains of, oh, but is that going to work out? But the clear evidence of like, well, it's better that these guys are coming back is because they are losing games.
Yeah. That's a good way. How high do you think the ceiling is?
I still think it's West Finals. I really do feel like there's certain matchups that would work out. Like I think a Denver versus Minnesota series would be great again. And so if you end up on that side of the bracket, you know, I think it might go 7 again, and you might have to really push it again. But you just see like Denver has no way to guard Ant, so Jokic has to play this insanely so much effort, high wall, drag it, and the Wolves can just spam it. And by the fourth quarter, Jokic is fried. You know, we've seen that enough times where I just think over a 7-game series, it's like he's so great that they can maybe outlast it. I think even if Denver like had to play Minnesota, it'd be awful for Denver because even if they survived, it's draining, just like it was draining for Minnesota, frankly, playing Denver. But I just think that's a matchup Minnesota can win. I think we've just seen enough of the Memphis of knowing, yes, they've lost that game consistently, but they could win that matchup. And then the Lakers, I'm interested to see how they match up there. I really am. So like, I think things could work out. I just think the West playoffs are going to be kind of wild. I really do. There's a lot of good teams, like the number of elite ones. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think this team could get to the West Finals again if everything lined up. If you said, oh, no, they get knocked out first round, I go, yeah, that's absolutely a possibility too. Like if I'm doing charts like 30, 40, whatever, you know, like first round exit, second round exit, third round exit, it's not, I don't think they're that different.
We should do, we did this last year where we like did an episode where we just went through like the quality of the matchup for the Wolves with each of the Western Conference. And I want to give it a couple weeks. Well, first so we could see some of these Wolves come back in, but also I want to see the Lakers. Teams. Yes. But let's do that once we've had, you know, kind of some more time to think about it. Cause I think the conclusion that we're coming to is there's a lot of matchup specific things with this Wolves team that really changed the height or depth of the expectation of what it is that they can or cannot do in this series. It's just gonna be funny. Like I don't know if I've talking with you or John about this in the media room before the break, but they're gonna get all these guys back when the schedule breaks way easier.
Yep.
You know, and
I was talking with this about Ryan last night during the game from Canis, and it was like it's gonna totally. There's very good chance that it's going to be. Wow, they are vibing now. It has all come together. Much like how Denver
are greater than the sum of their parts.
Much like how Denver just won 9 in a row, and that's no knock. Like that's impressive either way. It just is. It's hard to win 9 in a row against Utah. But it's like, well, this isn't totally truth. That Minnesota is bound to have a stretch like that too, where it's like Wolves, Western Conference sleeper,
Right.
and maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but that absolutely is the possibility to come together.
I think it is the Denver winning a bunch of games in a row against mediocre teams thing is actually what the Wolves need, right?
Yeah.
Obviously but if you could do that, can you go on a run like that so as to boost yourself back up in the standings, assess what it is that you have while still understanding that you're doing this against the Utahs and the Philly or whatever, the bad Brooklyn they play a handful of times or twice, I think. Like it's both. I don't want to, like, if it gets good, I don't want to overreact to it being good. And it's like, okay, I figured it out. They are going to the Western Conference Finals, because I think it's a two-step process. It's like, get hot, get that winning streak, have a long stretch there of good play, and then be able to take that into something in the playoffs when, again, you are playing the Thunder, the Rockets, the teams like that. Yeah, gotta have to caution myself to be like, okay, yeah, that is 8 wins in a row. Doesn't mean they're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, but I think it suggests that they could be. You know what I mean? Like, if you string that together effectively.
And it'll be something where, if this happens, since I think it's really great that we're just, approaching how we're going to talk when they win 7 or 8 games in a row. When that happens, it definitely comes down to how are they doing it as well. Is it like convincing? Is it a lot of games where you're like, well, that was terrible, but at least they won? Right. Because that's not as convincing. It's I think it is a stretch of play where it's like, this was really good. They found things that they can consistently lean on. They're forming a clear identity that they can rely on when things get tough in the playoffs or whenever. That all matters. I think the way in which you do things makes a big difference.
Last 2 things I wrote down, just OKC specific, that I want to mention that I think are becoming apparent in this matchup is they've done a really good job in winning the non-Shea minutes.
Yeah, really good.
And Shea had a great game last night. But you see a pathway to the Wolves being able to, like, somewhat contain that with the depth of perimeter defenders that you saw. And it's encouraging to be like, kind of like the non-Jokic minutes, right? In when the Wolves played the Nuggets 20 times last year or whatever. You're like, okay, this is really important here. What's going to be able to happen. And to the Wolves' credit, I think they've been really successful in or you can, like, see a path to being really successful in the non-Shea minutes. I did also want to note, like, I think Caruso being added to this is a really important variable, and he was last night. He didn't play in the game but before the All-Star break, and I don't think he's playing back-to-backs. Like, I'd be surprised if he plays tonight there. I think that's a bigger swing variable than we think, because if it is Dort and Caruso out there at the same time, like, it's going to be tough for Ant, and it's going to be tough for the Wolves perimeter creators. And like we said, with Julius and Jalen Williams on him there, I think the Caruso element really bumps it up. And we'll see again tonight. But those are 2, I guess, in opposite direction things that are coming clear in this Wolves OKC thing. I wanted to just note those.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think Isaiah Joe is somebody who helps the Thunder in a Wolves matchup. And so Caruso being out there means that they just don't have to play him very much. Yeah. And I think that helps them a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good shooter. And they can go to that if there's the Wolves have a different complex, they're playing drop or whatever. And
sure.
They're playing and this is part of what makes OKC special is
right.
the what we're talking about of the Wolves adjusting the minutes that guys are playing specific to the matchup. Like, the Thunder are great at that, and leaning into an Isaiah Joe when a game comes, or this is an opportunity for Aaron Wiggins to be really successful off the dribble in this game. They have a lot of different gears, just some good gears sometimes that they don't even need to use, which is in theory the best version of what the Wolves could be if they are able to put this all together and be great, again, greater than the sum of their parts or whatever. Do we miss anything? Anything else you want to get to from that game last night?
No, I do think it's like you see the Thunder, and obviously they have their core pieces and minutes and whatnot, but they definitely are a team that's not afraid to utilize all their chess pieces, like in different ways for certain matchups and certain games. And I think that is the peak of what the Wolves could be when totally healthy. I totally understood the 8 guys, whatever, get these guys to find a rhythm. But I think you've seen enough out of certain guys and when they thrive and when they don't, that they should be very willing to go, okay, let's be willing to move our chess pieces around here too, and not just be stuck of like, this is what we got. These are the guys we're rolling with. He comes in at this time. He comes in at this time. He doesn't play, whatever. And I do think it's important to note that I think coaches in general are more willing to do that in like a playoff series. If you go down 1-0 in a series, it's like, how are we adjusting? What can we turn to? Yeah. Most coaches don't just bang their head on the wall for 4 straight games and go, we're done. Yeah. Phoenix didn't really have much, but it was game 3 where it was like, Josh Okogie, get out there. You barely played all year. Bull, get out there. You barely played all year. Like, it's because you're not just going to go down with the ship without trying things. So you might say, well, Finch isn't going to sub guys. And it's like, if it's going bad in a playoff series, he will.
Do you think though for the rest of the regular season though, once it's back, like I'm expecting Finch to not be as dogmatic about the rotation and the minutes and the 8 guys thing again. Like, yeah. I think that starts in the final 20-25 games of the season.
Yeah, I think for the guys who have, I think maybe earned more of his trust. Like I think Terrence Shannon and Jalen Clark will be played when legitimately he's like, I think they can help us tonight. I think those 2 guys, I think, have cemented some trust with him of like, I know what they're going to bring. And I think that is what we need.
Yeah, like his faith in them compared to what his faith in Josh Minot and Rob Dillingham and Joe Ingles was at the beginning of the season is different.
Correct.
And
the consistency of what you're going to get. Like, will they make shots tonight? I don't know, whatever. But like, I know Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to get out and push the pace. Going to try to attack in transition. The Wolves need some of that. I know he's going to compete defensively, and Jalen Clark's going to play smart offense and compete defensively. And those as a coach, when like I know those 2 guys are going to bring those things that are additive to our team, then you're much more willing to be like, let's roll them out there. And you're willing to live through like their 1 or 2 mistakes and all that stuff.
Whereas like Dillingham and Minot were back then were more theoretical, right? Because neither of them had ever played before. Right. And yeah, there's more of a proof of concept of what Clark and Shannon are right now than what Rob and Josh were at the beginning of the season, which I think kind of led to that confusion that they had there. But let's wrap this up with some prize picks from tonight's Wolves Thunder game as a way of talking about it. I was looking at I think if Mike Conley plays in this game, like just before you submit your lineup, make sure he's actually playing in this back-to-back. Like
if you play him and then he doesn't play, the price picks is good. Like you can cancel it like an hour before the game if it's like, oh, he's out.
Yeah, I just right. Yeah, I like both of his numbers, 8.5 points and 4.5 assists. Like if the Wolves are shorthanded again and Mike Conley is active for the game, I like either of those. More than 8.5 points for him, more than 4.5 assists. His assists the last 5 games are 5, 5, 5, 9, 9. Like I think they're baking into that number it being a back-to-back. And one thing I think we've learned with Mike is if he's playing and he likes to play back-to-backs, that you shouldn't necessarily expect a production dip there. Were you able to look up any that you like from this game before?
You said I could pick whatever I wanted.
Yeah, okay, you can do that.
So I did TGL, the simulator golf.
Okay.
And
holes 1, okay.
Yeah, holes 1 singles, going with a couple of those.
Okay.
Sahith Theegala to win a singles hole, and Hideki Matsuyama to win a singles hole.
Wait, who is the first guy?
Sahith Theegala.
Oh, right here. Okay, yep. I don't know anything about golf.
Yeah, those 2. Yeah.
This. Okay, so if we were to make a lineup that is these 2 guys plus Mike Conley having more than 8.5 points, this is the most Jace Frederick prize picks lineup of all time, right there. I'm not going to say their names. They each win a hole, and Mike Conley has 9 or more points in this game. That's 5-1. And if you did $5, right? There you go.
Yeah. I will say the thing about prop betting that I have to imagine drives people crazy. I thought of this because, people will say, oh, Mike Conley only scored 2 points tonight. Like, you need somebody who's going to give you more than that. There was a play like in transition last night where Mike could just had a layup and instead he just drops it back for a Nas dunk. And it's like, that's obviously a great basketball play, great teammate. But can you imagine like having someone just point over and being like,
He's
what
at
are you
8 or
doing?
whatever.
Yeah. Like, or it's the first quarter and he finishes with one fewer. And it's like,
But no, that's
you know,
the game,
yeah,
man. That's the
yeah,
game.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
game. Take it under for once, you know.
Yeah,
the
right.
less
There you
than,
go. Yeah,
right?
and celebrate it. Yeah. I know. I was thinking of the aspect of when somebody's like, "Well, Michael Conley only scored 4 points." It's like, well, you probably would have felt better if you had 2 more there. When those kind of conversations come about.
That's prizepicks.com or the prizepicks app. If you don't have an account, please use the promo code Dane when you sign up. It helps them know that you came from us. It also gets your account credited with $50 in promo funds when you make your first $5 wager. Just quickly, I mean, extending off of that, like what are you expecting tonight from the Wolves in an awful back-to-back situation of but Oklahoma City is too. What just loose thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think that I would think it actually is Minnesota's advantage to be the road team here. Of like you get there and then you can just get in your hotel bed and probably sleep till for 12 hours. Where if Oklahoma City goes home and then you actually have like personal lives or whatever, whether that's significant other, kids, whatever, like, and obligations that just rise up because you're home. So I have a feeling Minnesota will probably get more rest throughout the day today than Oklahoma City guys will. But I also think there's quite a bit of like the crowd that can pick you up then at night. Maybe if you don't have as much energy.
And they're deeper right now too.
Yeah, they are, and that's what I was going to get to at the end. Minnesota, like it expends a lot of effort to go toe to toe with Oklahoma City and Minnesota, especially if they don't have Clark. He was a big aspect to it. I don't know if he'll play tonight. I know he was taking the trip, and he said he was good. But is he at 100%?
He was walking. We saw him in the locker room last night. He was walking around, and
I would guess he's going to play. But you also don't know the next day. Like he might be like, actually, it's pretty stiff, or whatever. If it isn't
right.
Anything.
That's the thing is if it's a neck thing and it is then maybe that's this morning how tight is that,
right?
And are you
right.
are you able to turn your head? I mean, I'm just not sure we know it's a neck thing. Did you rewatch? I mean, we couldn't really see that from our seats. Did you see the replay? Oh, you saw the play live?
Yeah, well, I saw the replay. Yeah, no, because the fans are sitting right there, in front of our view there. Yeah, I just say I did that a lot as a kid, like when I play football with my friends and stuff, like that neck whiplash back to the ground, and it looked horrible and it felt horrible for like 2 seconds. It wasn't on a hardwood floor, it was just on grass. But I don't know if it was concussion because I don't know if would you really have him get on the flight and stuff with that? I don't know. No, it might have just been neck. Like he was
popped his head though.
I know, right? But I don't think that necessarily means that it was definitely a concussion. Yeah, but either way, I just think Minnesota, they don't have a lot of bodies. Yeah, they really need him. They might be the team where in the fourth it's just like we just don't have as many guys as you. I think that might be something that sets in.
It's just hilarious that we're sitting here and being like, they need Jalen Clark.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's still the wrapping my head around.
And again, it's like it's in this game. Like they could play somebody else and be like, yeah, that's fine. They don't have Jalen Clark. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, right. That is the specificity, with him, and that's the distinct. Yeah, just you kind of know that with each opponent, right? You come in and you look at what the volume of perimeter creators are, the quality of the perimeter creators are. Obviously, Oklahoma City and Phoenix, the team that he got his first opportunity against, and the ones he's really stood out against. Yeah, it's clear the reason, right? It's that. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays tonight. Just energy overall, stupid NBA schedule. This is just dumb overall, and it's just really unfortunate that all of this, the 3 games in 4,
why are you? It's totally fine to do this or whatever. Like
sorry. Let me
Oklahoma City should the game before break should have been played in OKC, and these 2 games should have been played in Minnesota. I don't understand. Like all of a sudden,
I thought you were arguing with me.
No. That's what I'm saying with the NBA. Like they could play the exact same teams on the exact same nights and just have the game before break in OKC and have these 2 in a row in Minnesota. Nobody's traveling, and it's much more like okay, it's doable.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I just think we're getting to a breaking point, like with the league of some of this back-to-back stuff and the schedule stuff. And it really, I mean, we've both been doing this for a while. Like, obviously, like back-to-backs always have been a problem, and rest is a problem. But since the in-season tournament came around, the way the schedule has been off of that, and just more dumb stuff has come off of it. It reminds me of that. You remember when the lockout season, and they would do like 3 game, they'd have back to back to back. So they'd have three games in 4 nights. And it was like, okay, we're never doing that again. That was terrible. I feel like it's not to that degree. Like, do you think there's like a ripple effect off of this in-season tournament, which randomly gives teams like a bunch of time off here, and some teams not? It's the schedule is not as good, and it's just I wish every time good teams were playing each other as a good matchup that you were getting like the full flower of what those matchups could be, or something close to it. It's just like, this is kind of ridiculous. Like, tonight's game's just kind of ridiculous, and just a bummer. Like a little bit of a.
I mean, that was
a bummer.
Like that was the time they met before the break. It was a back-to-back for both teams. Minnesota was at least at home, and OKC had to travel before it. And it's just like, okay, it's a little tough to information gather on all of it, and then you get to like the playoffs. It's like, well, they beat this team this many times, but this guy was out, and this was actually a back-to-back for that team and not this team,
I mean, every year we do this when we're previewing a series. We go back and watch, or even just look at the box scores of that game. Like, we're going to do that for the Thunder.
Yeah, right.
Like, well, Rudy didn't play at all.
Right,
Julius Randle.
right.
It's it's whatever. I mean, us complaining about it isn't going to do anything. It's just a little bit of a bummer.
When Adam Silver gets to an hour and 5-minute mark of this podcast, he's going to go, damn. Like this.
Right.
This is actually a good point. I really should rethink this. I'm surprised nobody's brought this up before.
Yep. What's up, Adam?
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to tonight, and we'll see what this is. See if any Wolves, when these Wolves players kind of reintegrate here. I think Shams had a report that. Was it both Julius and Dante on this road
optimistic
trip?
That Julius and Dante by the end of this trip. Yeah, at some point in this trip, optimism. About
your sense has been Julius before Dante, right?
I think so. Just even in the Wolves' last report, as they were just coming out of break, was that Julius was cleared for 5-on-5 basketball activities, which tells you like, okay, he's close. And Dante was cleared for not that. He was cleared for like something else. That was a step below for sure, Julius's. So yeah, I mean, it just that right there said Julius is ahead of Dante on the return thing here.
And with Rudy, I have no idea. We weren't around the team at all, and didn't, I guess maybe we could have asked Finch about that last night. But I just kind of thought him sitting out the game before the break was like, all right, your back's tight. Don't play in this game. Take a week off. And be back fresh for the Houston game. And then Chris was in Houston, and he wrote about how Rudy was looked in Houston on Friday, like he was really like nurturing his back. I saw Rudy pregame briefly, but he's in street clothes and stuff like that. So I don't know what's necessarily going on with that one. But point being, I think we're getting close to maybe even by the end of the week. Or at the end of the month, maybe having all 3 of these guys back, and then it being the final 6 weeks of the season with the Wolves at full strength, which will be interesting to see if they can be that sum of their parts. Right, that's the thing, because that's where the ceiling of this comes from. Appreciate you doing this on little sleep, Jace. I'll see you. I don't know, when's the next? What's the next home game, or when are they back? I don't even.
Next week, I believe. Yeah.
Appreciate you doing it. You guys can read Jace over at the Pioneer Press. You can follow him on Twitter at Jace Frederick. Coming up next for the show is Chris is traveling from Oklahoma City to LA and tomorrow, so Britt is going to join me, and we're going to talk about this second Thunder game on Tuesday, and then we'll get Chris on Wednesday later on in the week once he's in LA. So that's what's coming up. Until then, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out. How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot, so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.